So I started by printing out something from the internet because I'm not going to focus on doing an original design. This is for my daughter. She goes to William and Mary. So I scaled this as big as I could. I rolled out a piece of slab that's 3/8 inch. That is a thicker base than what I'm going to add to it. Then I took a pen, and I already did this, so it's like a cooking show. You don't have to sit here and watch me trace the whole thing. But the pen work is just to make an indentation so I know where to place my objects on top, because you're doing an additive slab design project. So you're adding pieces to it. Then I also use scissors to cut out the paper of the contour. So when you start this, the first thing you need to do is figure out the contour shape of your base. The contour shape of my base is the contour shape of this logo. What I'm going to do is after I use the pen to transfer, I'll cut around it with my knife. And now I can remove this, and you can see an indentation where my pieces are going to go. So my base is done. What I want to do, though, is I'm just going to take little cuts from the side so I can remove it, oops, like a puzzle piece. Let's see if I can get that to autofocus. So I'm going to grab little pieces. This way, all these little undercuts aren't going to get ruined by me trying to pull it in one big piece. So these are all of my scraps. So my base is done. Notice I put this slab on a board with dry newspaper underneath. That's just to help the clay prevent it from sticking to the board. So I would work off of a board instead on the table, because if your slab is really big, when you go to move it, it might get distorted. So now I know that it's totally how I need it to be. So now my base is done. I'm going to fast forward to my second slab. Let me move this. This is my additive layer, meaning I'm adding pieces. And this layer is 1/4 of an inch thick. It's not quite as thick. You can do thicker, but I find it harder for some very small details like this. If this clay is really thick, it's going to be hard to keep for that letter to keep its shape. So I did essentially the same thing where I laid this down and I traced over it with the pen, but I'm not so concerned with the outside because the outside is my base. It's these yellow and white pieces that are my additive pieces. So that's what I want to trace and cut away. So I already marked on here, this plus sign means I'm adding this. This minus sign here, not this one, this should be additive. All of this gray area on the edge and this edge is my deductive, which means I'm going to cut away when the slab is a little bit more set, when it's a little bit harder. So once I traced and transferred, I got this kind of indentation here, and then I went ahead with my knife and I started to cut away. What I did to remove pieces around this is I did the same thing I did on the base, where I cut away and removed it like a puzzle piece. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to add some pieces, and a lot of it is more review because most of you know how to score and slip. So when I go here, this is my base. I'm going to remove this letter E that I just cut, and on the back of this, we all know how to score and slip. So I'm going to grab my scoring tool, and here I can see this is where the E will go. And then on the back of my E, I'm going to score that. And I'm not so concerned with this little piece stuck in the E because I can deduct that once it's attached to my base. In fact, it might even be easier to deduct that. Now, instead of using water, especially with the slab, because you may have your pieces but not attach them right away, I would use slip instead of water. Slip is basically just that muddy leftover clay that is in the silver bowl on the wedging table. So I'm going to add some slip here, add some slip here, and then you guys know the drill here. So at this point, there's a lot of excess water. To clean that up while it's still wet, I'll just take a nice dry paintbrush. I'm going to hold my finger on that and just kind of wipe around it and add pressure. When you do larger pieces, like when I add this big W and M, you really want to add pressure because you don't want to get air pockets under there. A lot of times when these are fired, those pieces may fall off because there's air in there and it'll just pop that design off. So you want to add a lot of pressure. Now tomorrow when this is a little bit more set, I'm going to go in with my little loop tool and I'm going to deduct that little piece that I didn't want to remove right now because I didn't want it to distort my letter E. So I can just kind of press into the clay. It'll be easier though when this clay is a little bit more set. So as I was mentioning here, this gray outline, that's going to be a deduction, meaning I'm removing that from the background, but I'm not removing it so much to the base. I just want it to be a little bit of a lower layer. So when we do what's called low relief, it's sculptural that's flat, but not so, it's not 3D sculpture, it's a flat piece, it's got some level. So tomorrow when this is more set, I can start to remove, just think of it as like a step down. So I'm almost making like a step stool of this is my base layer and then this is that gray layer. So I'll continue this more tomorrow, but at least in starting, you guys know, let me just pause this.